I have been at a true loss for what to say tonight. High holiday sermon writing gives me anxiety any given year, but this is 2020, and there is no more room for fear. There is only room for hope, which is exactly what I need to talk about with you tonight. I was resistant to letting this be my message this year, thinking it too simple for these heavy days. But in the weeks leading up to finally writing these words, hope was the message that kept coming at me from every direction. I wish I had something else in me to talk about, something more concrete, less ephemeral and affective. But we are half a year into this pandemic, and I simply don't have anything else to say while standing on the threshold of a new year. I'll begin with a story. One that you've no doubt heard before, about the creation of the world, for that is what we celebrate today. In the beginning, there was only the holy darkness, and the earth was tohu vavohu, formless and void. The source of life was all that existed, and then, at a moment in time, a moment that lasted millennia, this world, the world of being, emerged from the heart of the holy darkness as a great ray of light. And then, perhaps because this is a Jewish story, there was an accident. The vessels containing the light could no longer hold it, and the wholeness of the world broke, shattering and scattering into 1,000 fragments of light. The fragments fell into all events and all people where they stay concealed. We humans are a response to this accident. We are here because we are born with the capacity to find the hidden light in all events and all people, to lift it up and make it visible once again, and thereby to restore the innate wholeness of the world. This task is called tikkun olam, the restoration of the world. This is a collective task. It involves all people who have ever been born, all people presently alive, and all people yet to be born. We are all healers of the world. Not by making a huge difference, though. Tikkun olam is about healing the world that touches you, that's around you. This story, which I received in this form from Jewish physician Rachel Naomi Remen, who received it from her grandfather, is a story of hope. I was raised on a steady diet of such insistence that we are each capable of and responsible for doing our part in healing the world. To be a Jew is to proclaim that there is a oneness that runs in and through all things. That oneness might be God, or it might be our mundane and sacred humanity. I say mundane and sacred in the same breath because human existence is both. It is messy, it is difficult, and it is sweet, and it is joyous. It is a deeply paradoxical condition. Rabbi Lawrence Kushner teaches that when we sense a paradox, God must be near. Such boldness requires both and thinking, a willingness to acknowledge that there are some things we will never understand, and a deeply rooted hope that expands beyond our capacity for knowledge and certainty. What could be more hopeful than starting something new? Even in the midst of a pandemic, we have seen hope at every turn. We are adopting pets and furiously cleaning and organizing and rearranging our homes, baking loaf after loaf after loaf of bread. Our presence tonight, setting aside the time to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, is an act of hope. We mourn the inability to gather together in person, but we are gathered still, each in our own places. The flippant phrase, 2020 is canceled, is not an option for us. This fresh new year of 5781 is not canceled. It is full of possibility, full of hope. Certainly, hope has its limitations, what humanist chaplain Vanessa Zoltan calls the sinister side of hope. She is not a fan of hope when it is used as a tool of oppression. Hope can be turned against us when those in positions of power say, just keep working hard and all will be right for your children, if not for you. Hope can be abusive when handed to us by those who would rather have us quiet, submissive, and fearful, while our agency is stripped away with the other hand. Perhaps you're sick of the saccharine sweet greeting card or tongue-in-cheek version of hope that is trite and limited. That is not the hope I prescribe tonight. Chaplain Zoltan asserts hope comes into play when we have exhausted our agency, when we have taken all the steps, followed each successive intervention, and done absolutely everything that our human minds and bodies and hands can do. Then we turn to hope. Hope, of course, exists alongside all the interventions, the actions, the steps taken towards expressing one's agency. Hope is the current that flows through us as we lift our eyes from the narrows of despair and take step after step after step toward the wide open expanses of hope. Hope is the light that guides us toward finding the scattered holy sparks, collecting them like delicate fireflies, and holding them aloft. The Hebrew language is based on 3-letter root words called shoreshim. Once we know the meaning of a shoresh, we can make connections between the words that share them. The same is true of words that share only 2 out of the 3 letters. The Hebrew word for hope, tikva, shares 2 letters with the word for intention, kavanah. These 2 words are bound by the letters kuf and vav, which together mean a connection, a chord, or a unit of measure. Tikva, hope, doesn't happen to us. Just like kavanah, intention, doesn't arise of its own accord. They require a plan, a decision to be measured in our response to external events and internal thoughts. They represent a choice to set our sights in a particular direction. We can just as easily choose despair, perhaps more easily. Ultimately, hope is a choice, an intention that we set for ourselves. No one else can do it for us. To have hope is to be vulnerable, to acknowledge our limitations, and move forward right alongside them. My dear friend, teacher, and colleague, Rabbi Brian Mayer, recently shared a quote from his 83-year-old best friend, Larry, a retired minister. Larry says, "I would rather live with hope and be occasionally wrong than live without hope and be right." Hope is a message that transcends the generations and clearly transcends the various divisions that we have imposed upon the human condition. Hope is the cord that connects us one to another, the intention that keeps us accountable to our actions and reactions to the world around us. Hope isn't about being right or being cynical or being smart. Hope is about choosing life and gathering the sparks as we find them, wherever we can find them. As we stand on the threshold between the year that was and the year that will be, may we cloak ourselves in hope. May we be mindful of how our actions affect those around us, take care in how we proceed along our personal paths, and set an intention of hope for a kinder world, a safer world, a world that is not a zero-sum game of power and gain over against the well-being of all. Shana tova umekuva, a good and hopeful year for us all.